Hey everybody, I'm Chris.
And I'm Dan, and today we're going to be talking about God's kindness. Now, Chris, you've shared with us before about how you've been here and in other parts of the world, sharing God's love and kindness with kids who haven't really heard about Jesus.
Yeah.
How do they respond to that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to go around the world and even in our own country and see that some people aren't feeling accepted, they don't feel loved. And when we show them Jesus' love, it really can bring them hope, and that can transform the way they see themselves as well as the world around them.
That is so good to hear. I think when we share God's love and kindness, we get to experience a joy that can really only come from God.
Yeah, for sure. I think the amount of fulfillment we feel is incredible once we show someone what Jesus' love is like. So let's watch today's God story and see what kindness looks like.
So when I was first in ministry, my first ministry job was as a youth pastor, working with like you guys, students. Things went really, really well. We were fortunate to be part of a great church family and a really like growing youth ministry. Hey everybody, it's Jimmy. Good to be with you again. At the very beginning of my ministry, we had this couple who are quite wealthy approach us and say, we want to talk to you about a few things and we have some questions. Why don't you own a house? Like, why are you living in an apartment? I said, we just don't have the financial means to be able to buy a house. And they said, well, we want to be kind to you just like people were kind to us in our past, and you have a choice. We can either give you $30,000 for a down payment for your house, or we'll buy you a house and you can just pay us back. It'll be like you're paying us a mortgage. And I remember just being overwhelmed by the love of the community of God and the kindness and generosity of these people. And that's today's big idea, is that we can show God's kindness. All right, so today we're continuing in our series in 2 Samuel about King David. And so when we pick it up in 2 Samuel chapter 7, we read that David is at peace and free from the war fighting with his enemies. Now, David at the time talked to his prophet, this prophet that was around him called Nathan. He said, I want to build like this temple, this masterpiece, this huge building for God, so that literally God has a house, has a palace, has a thing to live in. And Nathan, interestingly enough, says, well, let's put a pin in that. I'll come back to you. So then Nathan comes back to David, and this is what he said. He said, you know, God doesn't need you to build a house for him. Instead, and picking it up in 2 Samuel chapter 7, this is what we read. For when you die and are buried with your ancestors, God says, I will raise up one of your descendants, your own offspring, kids, family, and I will make his kingdom strong. He is the one who will build a house, a temple, a living space for my name, and I will secure his royal throne forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son's. If he sins, I will correct and discipline him with the rod like any father would do. But my favor will not be taken from him as I took it from Saul, whom I have removed from your sight. Your house and your kingdom will continue before me for all time, and your throne will be secure forever. So this is what Nathan hears, and he goes back to David and explains this to him. And then we pick it up a little lower in chapter 7, verse 20. And this is what David is saying after hearing from Nathan. And he says, well, what more can I say to you? You know what your servant is really like, O sovereign Lord. Because of your promise and according to your will, you have done all these great things, and you've made them known to your servant. How great are you, O sovereign Lord? There is no one like you. We have never even heard of another God like you. All right, so God loved David obviously very much, and David was learning to understand, know, and love God very, very much as well. David is captured by this notion of kindness, of God's love, even to the point of saying, hey, listen, is there anybody left in King Saul's family? Is there anybody that we can serve and care for? And there is this one dude called Mephibosheth who's sick, who has an infirmity, and David says, okay, what can we do to show kindness and love and care for him? And this is exactly what David does. Out of his own power and resources, he reaches out in an other-centered way and wants to care for somebody who would even be known as an enemy, to extend his experience of God's kindness to somebody that definitely needed it. And so the message is the same for us today. We can show God's kindness. This kindness of God continues to be part of our story. Jesus, God incarnate, God made flesh, comes and shows an ethic of other-centeredness, a way of living that puts others before ourselves. Now, for you, you may be sitting there saying, okay, I get it, Jimmy, yeah, fair enough, but like, I don't have the means to be able to give you $30,000 or give my neighbor $30,000 or build a house or build a temple or even a dog house for anybody. So what is it that I can do? Well, actually, the latter half of David's story is more indicative and adheres to our story than maybe the first half. So David is kind to somebody who's sick. David is kind to Mephibosheth, who is sick, and extends mercy. He meets with his family and commits to doing whatever he can to serve the family and its needs. What if our story was like that? What if the extension of God's kindness and grace was having eyes for people that needed to experience the kindness, the grace, the love of God in everyday life? Maybe your palace building is being nice to your neighbor. Maybe your house building is being kind to the bus driver. You see, we can show God's kindness. It's built within us. We should be inspired by it. It is our ethic. It's how we continue to walk out not only the ethic and the moral of this story, but the ethic and the reality of Jesus by his Spirit living within us. So my brothers and sisters, may you be a kind person today wherever you find yourself.
Okay, so to honor King Saul, David showed kindness to one of his descendants, and that's really cool. But how amazing is it that we can show kindness to someone and they can experience it for themselves?
Absolutely. We can show God's kindness in everyday situations. You could help an elderly person cross the street with their groceries, or give some of your lunch to a classmate who forgot theirs, or let someone borrow your umbrella at the bus stop. Those are all simple, everyday things we could do to show God's kindness to other people.
Yeah.
But we can also show God's kindness when it's difficult and when it takes sacrifice to do so.
Yeah, totally. Well, we have another video to watch. Let's check it out.
Hey friends, I'm Natalia and I'm here with Lauren today. Lauren, can you share a little bit about yourself with us?
Yeah, so I'm 24 years old, I rock climb, and I love to bake.
Oh, that's amazing. Can you please bake me something?
Absolutely,
Okay.
anything you want.
Awesome. So sometimes following Jesus leads us to make hard choices that sometimes seem a little bit backwards. And you recently had to make one of these choices. So could you share a little bit of that story with us?
Yeah, so I was in a relationship with a guy for about 4 years who wasn't a Christian. And he was a really great guy with good morals and everything. But in the back of my mind, I always knew it wasn't a good idea because he wasn't open to pursuing a relationship with God. And I would say I'm the type of person that just likes to have everything figured out and to have a plan for my life. And so being in that relationship was almost like me just checking something off the list. But deep down, I just knew it wasn't the right thing.
So what exactly was the problem?
I felt like I really wanted to get more involved in the church and find more friends in the community there, but he was really not open to doing that with me, so I kind of just felt stuck where I was.
What kind of effect did that have on you and on the relationship?
I felt like I was always trying to change him, and it wasn't fair to him to always be judging him and trying to change who he was. And I think the reason I stayed in that relationship for so long was because I was just scared of the uncertainty of not having that part of my life figured out.
Yeah. That must have been really hard for you. So how did you handle it?
Yeah, I definitely felt really lonely afterwards, and I was so confused whether or not I had done the right thing. But anytime I would start to feel upset, I would just go for a walk by the lake. It's where I felt most connected to God, and I could just focus on that. And then I also started going to home church right after the breakup, and I just instantly felt so welcomed by everyone there, and just felt so part of a community.
Where are you now?
So I've made some of my best friends at home church, and it just feels so good to have that community of people that I can talk about my faith with. And I also just got baptized on Easter Sunday.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I just felt like having gotten more involved in the church made me realize that that was the next step that I had to take in my faith.
You know, listening to your story, I can really see kindness in the way that you were honest about how you felt about the relationship.
Yeah, I think it just gave us both the opportunity to grow in the areas that we wanted to grow in. And I think it just goes to show that sometimes doing the kind thing isn't easy, and it may not feel like the right thing, but ultimately it's the kind thing to do.
Yeah. I'm curious as to how you experience kindness at home church.
Yeah, I definitely felt God's kindness in bringing that community into my life and bringing all those people around me. And just the way everyone was so welcoming and loving towards me, I just felt so much kindness from them.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
After watching Lauren's story, I realized that she acted out of kindness and respect when she walked away from that relationship. She realized that she was trying to change him, and that actually the kind thing to do was let him be who he wanted to be.
Yeah, I mean, she acted out of faith, and now she has this peace and freedom to really go after that relationship with God that she was longing for.
Absolutely. And sometimes being kind requires sacrifice on our own part. But if we listen to the Holy Spirit, that act of kindness can bear fruit.
For sure. All right, guys, let's get into our small groups now and see what this looks like in our lives.